This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News, news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
All right, well, We All Be is honored to have on the one and only social justice engineer, brother GavIN Richard. He's going to tell us what's going on in Louisiana and beyond, his beloved home state. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, brother. How you been?
I'm good, man. I was just checking in. I was hoping that everything was okay with you down there, 'cause I know you are a New Orleans native, and y'all recently had those 7 tornadoes come through on Tuesday, which was your birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, brother. Felt good to be 13.
Excellent.
Everything. Thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for all the listeners out there. Just keep New Orleans in prayer right now with all of the tornado that struck yesterday morning. I've had friends and family that are doing okay. They only suffered, some suffered minimal damage. Some people that I know of, they lost their home. So it's, but we're resilient people, and we'll be back.
Y'all definitely are resilient. And also, I want to ask you about thinking about natural disasters. What happened last year, the flood last summer, in the aftermath of what happened with Alton Sterling. Could you please remind us what went down in Baton Rouge with Alton Sterling?
Well, Alton Sterling's that actually happened right before the flood.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually the 4th of July holiday when that took place. And if you remember, he was selling CDs outside of a corner store, and the police had gotten a phone call. He was, obviously, and the tape I'm sure is on YouTube, and people that have seen it, they tackled him to the ground, and they shot 5 shots into him and killed him. Now, they tried to say he had a gun and so forth, which even if he had a gun, if the man was not threatening them in any way, if he didn't pull a gun out on them, and obviously if you look at the tape, Mr. Sterling is on the ground the whole time. So, and they had their guns pointed at him. So it wouldn't make sense for anybody to go for a gun if you have 2 guns on you, and the likelihood is you're going to get shot. And obviously, unfortunately, there's a point where the video turns away, but you could clearly see Mr. Sterling was on the ground and he shot. And as of this moment, the Department of Justice, the feds have been the ones that have taken over the case, not the state, which basically tells me that it's going to be, I really believe there's going to be a no charge.
Okay.
In my opinion, just because I know how the bastards think.
So also, you're a legal guy. You're a lawyer, correct?
Yeah, I am.
So you're a man of many talents, and you got a lot of insight. And I want to ask you, there's a lot of things that we talk about this era of fake news and alternative facts. I want to know what's going on down there in the ground, because you see there's a lot of things happening that are not being publicized. That is not well known outside of Baton Rouge or Louisiana. Can you tell us what's going on right now down in your home state?
Oh, what specifically?
I guess with you talked about the Alton Sterling thing, but also some other cases. Like you had that road rage incident with the brother, the former football player.
You talking about Joe McKnight,
right? Yeah.
Well, interesting about him. What's happened now? They have, which I was shocked, but I guess happy at, is that the shooter has been. I can't think of his name, but the charges were actually amended to 2nd-degree murder. But you see, Jefferson Parish, I'm going to give you a little history about it. It's one of the most racist, low-down places if you're a black person to be in. That area, and I'm talking specifically about, I'm not talking about everybody else, but I'm speaking specifically about the police department in Jefferson Parish. They've had a history of harassing minorities. I distinctly remember, the sheriff of Jefferson Parish was Harry Lee. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Harry Lee was, this old Korean dude that he didn't like blacks. And in fact, he tried to put up a barricade from Jefferson Parish and Orleans Parish to keep, of course they would say to keep out the criminals, but that's code word for black people. In fact, they want to actually name the bridge on the I think the Crescent City Connection after him, which I'm glad it failed. It didn't go through. So, and then you had the sheriff, if you were watching the press conference after the Joe McKnight shooting, he basically sounded like this guy's defense attorney. If you remember, you were listening to it. Did you hear it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was out there talking about, he was defending him, basically saying, we have discretion and we can do such and such. The discretion is not for you. The discretion is for the prosecutor. But the prosecutor wants to, amend the charge and wants to get a charge of second-degree murder. But if a guy admits he shot a man who was unarmed, you have enough to make an arrest. And he should have been arrested because, Brother Ron, you know as well as I do that if the roles were reversed, this white boy, if I killed a white boy or killed a white man, that I would be in jail without question with my face on the TV news. This man was allowed several days to get his affairs in order. And, they virtually, hire whatever attorney he wanted and so forth, and they gave him a manslaughter charge. Now, the question is, will the charge stick? That depends on what the jury finds, and they're the finder of fact. It's interesting, the law that we have in Louisiana when it comes to self-defense is called justifiable homicide. And basically, if a person reasonably believes that they're in imminent danger, of serious bodily injury or imminent death, they do have a right to, self-defend themselves and to take that other person's life if it's necessary. But the question is, what's reasonable? You getting in a road rage incident and him coming up to the door, is that reasonable enough that you fire several shots into it?
Right.
And I don't want to try, and of course, that's up for the court to decide, but we just knew when he was not arrested immediately, as we see with other cases, like, for instance, in Louisiana with the Cardell Hayes shooting, when Cardell Hayes and Will Smith got into it, which was a road rage incident, Cardell was arrested immediately.
And the Will Smith guy was a former football player as well, correct?
Right, he's a former Saint player, yeah.
Wow. So I know the shooter for Joe McKnight, his name is Ronald Gasser or Gaser or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, so, you don't think that's kind of strange that these type of road rage incidents happen with former NFL football players? What do you think that's about? Is there a conspiracy or, what's your take on that?
I don't know about that part. I just think that, people just go crazy when they get cut off the road, whether they knew they were a football player or not. But I think that's interesting. I think that is interesting. You've had Will Smith killed, and now you've had Joe McKnight killed, although there are different circumstances that involve each case. And, I don't know all the facts and circumstances, for instance, with Gasser and McKnight, but we do know that McKnight was unarmed. We do know that McKnight, there was cut, he had supposedly cut this guy off, but that's not a reason to take someone's life either.
Right.
So is it really that upsetting that you would actually fire gunshots into someone over a road rage incident? Some of this stuff could have been avoided, even with Will Smith's thing. But with Will Smith's thing, he was driving drunk too. And, and there was a lot of circumstances involved with that I was following. Like, I didn't know when I was reading the report, they said there was gunshot residue on his hand.
Will Smith's hand?
Oh, yeah.
So you feel like the guy might have shot him in self-defense or something like that, or they were just engaged in shootout?
His defense attorney, John Fuller, was alleging that Cardell had shot out of self-defense because he thought Will was going for a gun when he turned his back. And I've heard that there was a second gun in the car, but unfortunately for Cardell, nobody was able to prove that. When they called the expert on the stand, who said they shot a gunshot residue, she said it could have also come from a previously discharged firearm. So maybe he touched his firearm that had been fired. I don't know. Or whether there was a second gun. I do know that they had someone in the car, and it wasn't really Will Smith that was instigated. It was his stupid-ass friends that were instigating the whole thing. But he shouldn't have been driving drunk, and, I don't think, it shouldn't got to a point where I don't even think Cordell could have pulled his gun out.
No, that's a different way of looking at it. Yeah, I didn't like. That's kind of why when you tell me all this information, I kind of look at the case differently now.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. Wow. Well, I want to ask you this because you are an expert about what happened. You're a survivor. You're resilient, but you also you was a part of what happened to Hurricane FEMA, KatrINa. And I want to get your thoughts on, we like almost 12
I like
years
to
removed.
play on the name, Ron.
Yeah, but
Hurricane FEMA.
I know it's real close to you because you wrote this very great detailed book about the aftermath of Katrina. You interviewed law enforcement officials, witnesses, survivors, even Dick Gregory for your your wonderful book. What is the unfinished business with Katrina? Are there any unfinished things that need to be addressed as it relates to Katrina?
Most definitely. We need to account for why several $100 million was allocated to the hardest hit areas, which were mostly black and never went to those areas. That's one question we got to ask. We got to ask why money that was there was a project that here in Louisiana called the Go Zone Project that was allocated to New Orleans, I believe it was New Orleans, Eastern, even parts of Baton Rouge, and Lower Ninth Ward, but that money went elsewhere. And I distinctly remember that because there was an article in the Baton Rouge Advocate on my birthday, about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. And they were talking about that. So that's some of the unresolved business that we've had, whatever happened to all of that money. And when you go back to even parts of New Orleans, like even we're talking about New Orleans East area, you still see blighted buildings. There's still homes that have not been that are blighted, that have not been redeveloped and inhabitable. We have problems with police protection. You also have problems now with the hospital that had been set up there. The hospital that they had previously was a full emergency room. What they have here is not a level, I've talked to you about this before, it's not a level 1 hospital. And by the American College of Surgeons, there are different levels to each hospital. You have a level 1 through level 4, and level 4 being the weakest. And this hospital is around a level 4. They can't even, to my knowledge, they can't even birth babies over at this place. That's just one of the stuff that's going on.
So, man, it's fascinating. Like, we just got through 8 years of President Obama. And, this has been like Katrina happened almost 12 years ago. And now we got this new presidential regime in with Donald Trump. Can black folks get anything done under these, current state of politics? Can we do anything to help, rectify what happened with Katrina? And like you said, all the issues that need to be addressed. Can black folks get anything done?
If we're able to allocate and put an agenda together and put our monies together, we can solve our issues ourselves. The problem is we get to bickering and fighting, and sometimes we get, like Tariq Nasheed says, the coon train to come in to say things like, for instance, when we talk about, let's take Katrina off the table. Let's talk about reparations, for instance. Do you know that President Obama publicly was, and in one of the last press conferences he gave, or interviews he gave with NPR, he gave our reason why reparations shouldn't be granted to black people. He said he said it's understandable, but it's not probable. Did you hear that?
All right. Well, I heard excerpts of that. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts about it is that President Obama approved $550 million to Native American groups, according to the Harvard Institute. He fought for the rights of gay people. He even went as far as having his Attorney General read a letter and telling every school across the country if they don't allow transgenders to use the bathroom of their choice in any school, and we're talking from kindergarten all the way through high school, they can lose their funding. He said that. So I find it very interesting that the so-called first black president can fight for every other group, but when it's black people, he's quiet.
Wow.
And part of that is our fault because we didn't ask for him for anything. I was listening to Jeff Brown on Zoe Williams' show, and he said something very exactly. Say what you want about Donald Trump, and how racist and misogynist or arrogant he is, he did something that Obama didn't do, and that's he mentioned the ghetto. I don't really, so I mean, it is what it is, man. I knew once he got in office, when President Obama was in office, I knew that you couldn't talk to anybody about him. You couldn't say a negative word. And it's not really about being negative. You're just trying to get what you want out of a politician. That's what you're supposed to do. You don't ever worship somebody because they're black or white. I don't care what they look like. You know, he didn't. I was listening to your show with Judge Joe Brown, and how he was talking about if you're the first, you know, regardless of whether he would get hurt or assassinated or what, if you didn't want to be president, then he should. You wanted to be president, you chose to run, then you got to do something.
Right. I definitely.
If you're that scared, don't run.
Yeah, you know, even with the HBCU situation, they saying Donald Trump is thinking about doing something for HBCUs now, the historically black colleges and universities. And Obama, they were getting defunded. You know, so like he wasn't trying to do anything for HBCUs.
Right, but if you talk to people about it, they'll try to make up whatever excuse they can. He was actually about to be sued by the according to the HBCU Digest. Howard University tried to sue him.
Wow.
Because what he did was he was changing, when you talk about defunding, he was actually changing the policies. For instance, how you get federal loans. And so as a result of that, when you had, for instance, people that were going to Howard, they had to drop out because it would be too expensive for them to go there. When you saw did you see when he came to Baton Rouge this past winter? Of 2016, this early last year, the kids were asking, a kid from Southern asked him about protecting HBCUs, and his response was, well, we understand they're, you know, historic and so forth, but if they're not graduating anybody, then, you know, I'm just paraphrasing, but he said something along those lines, well, if the numbers are not correct, it doesn't make sense to keep giving money to them. That was his position. So, yeah, so a lot of people, and some people were upset about it, that he said that because he was totally unprepared and cut off. You see, when he can give speeches, you know, great. He knows what to say. When you ask him a question, you can't get a direct answer out of it.
So is he more like an actor, as Judge Joe Brown would say, rather than a real politician or a decision maker?
Well, all politicians are actors in some way. So I feel like, yeah, he definitely was putting on somebody. He definitely is not putting on he's not reading from my script.
Right, exactly. But you know, like, it's like black folks, we treat we as a group, I ain't gonna say as individuals, but we as a group treat our politics like church. It gotta be a feel-good experience. It's an emotional feel-good. It's not really something that don't get us results at the end of the day, because once you leave church, you still got bills to pay. You still got a lot of other headaches to deal with. So, like, you know, it's like for that moment, it's like the feel good. It's like a source of type of weird comfort food, which is really self-destructive.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right on that point. It's definitely like that, because I feel like what we often do is we'll go out and tell people to go vote, but we don't ever tell them what to go vote for. Like when you watch here in Baton Rouge, for instance, okay, we had the governor's race. He was running against, John Bell Edwards was running against David Vitter. David Vitter is Republican, John Bell Edwards is a Democrat. And same thing even with the mayoral race. We elected our first black female mayor, Sharon Weston Broome. I wish her the best of luck. But here's my thing. Let's go back to the governor's race, and I'm just giving an example. John Bell Edwards, David Vitter run. Whenever you listen to the black radio stations, they always play a 15 or 30-second ad with scary music behind the Republicans' voice and campaign, and they always push and endorse the Democrat. Now, John Bell Edwards is a Democrat, and he's had to overcome a lot. I think he's done good, but John Bell Edwards just signed the hate crime bill, Blue Lives Matter, police officers. And you just had, in this past legislation in Louisiana, they made resisting arrest under that bill a felony. Resisting arrest is now a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. And it's basically applied. It definitely has free speech issues because it's applied basically to protesters. And if you were to say, for instance, you said something to the officer or you approached the officer in any way under that bill, which is to protect the police officer, they can arrest you for resisting arrest.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which I think should be outlawed anyway because it's natural when you get arrested to resist because you forces resist. It's taken away. Your right to leave is restricted.
Mm-hmm.
Your right to movement is restricted. That's what an arrest is. It's a seizure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just crazy, man. You started the insanity of it all. I'm thinking about when you read that to me. Are we not in reality under martial law? Then it's just not a police state already.
Well, most definitely we've been a police state. We've been a police state for a long time. We've been overtaken by a new form of government for the last 55 years, ever since the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, that's when everybody in America should have been up in arms, especially when they found out that the House Select Committee said it was a probable conspiracy.
But
Same thing with Dr. King's assassination, yeah.
Definitely, but why you think it is? Like, you feel like, I won't say, it's like people are so complacent. Like, right now, I'm in Memphis, and they're trying about closing down 33 historically black schools, the very well-known schools in the community. And it seems like the response has been very lethargic, that people are out of it, that black people in particular are tired. We're battle fatigued for whatever reason. It might not be, I know there's people out there working on stuff. We all know there's black folks out there doing things, but it's like the overall mindset of us is we're very beaten down or we're complacent, and really there's no hope.
Yeah.
How you feel about the move right now? What's your take on the move?
I think people are lethargic in general because when we see things, we have a society right now that we're so complacent and accepting of things. We don't ever question stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, when you look at TV shows now, it's mind-numbing.
Right.
The number one show in America, Empire. Look at the way that they portray the black family. Look at Love and Hip Hop.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is what our daughters and sons got to look up to. When I was a kid growing up, we had quality programming, like A Different World,
right.
Cosby Show. We had Family Matters, Fresh Prince, shows that they had comedy. I mean, they were funny, but they also had a storyline behind it. There was something good. A lesson was learned. But now, today, you don't have that. And I feel when it comes to what you're saying about the movement and so forth and people being lethargic, I think in general, people are just complacent with getting by. And it's not just black, it's white too.
Right.
I think that unless they see things on social media now, because social media determines everything, that's when you see all of these kids jump up and fight for something and they don't even know what the hell they're fighting for.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes. Like when you look at, for instance, that feminist march that they had after Trump's inauguration,
mm-hmm.
and, you have people fighting for abortion rights and so forth. Do most people even know why abortion or how abortion became law in this country?
I'll say most people don't.
Right. Like, for instance, well, you already know who Margaret Sanger is. She was the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
She was also a leading member of the eugenics movement here in America. Not to mention also, when abortion became legal in the United States, Ron, Norma McCorvey, who is Jane Roe from Roe v. Wade,
mm-hmm.
what she did and what they did was in order to get the American people behind, reproductive rights, as they call it, and behind to making abortion legal, they, in her, statement before the court, in a statement of fact, she stated that she was raped by a gang of black men. And that's how all of that changed.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that, but that's really
I didn't
how
know
all of
that.
that stuff started. Yeah.
Was she telling the truth or was she lying?
She was lying her ass off.
Oh, man. That's
She got
Scottsboro
pregnant.
Boys. Wow.
She got pregnant she had a third pregnancy, and because she was scared, didn't know what to do. She got approached by some people from the abortion. I don't know what groups it were, but it was one of these. It may have been A.L.L. I don't want to say the wrong thing and give the wrong information, but they tried to convince her to go before the court and fight this so that she can have an abortion, which she didn't. And believe it or not, she's actually a born again Christian, and she's repented, from the lie that she did. But her lies cost the lives of 57 million babies. Some of whom, if you're talking about a woman's choice, most of the babies that are aborted are girls.
I know I was hearing something that people said a lot of black babies were aborted as well, millions of black babies. So, I mean, what's your take on me? It's an interesting conundrum because I know people say they're pro-life, but when the babies get here, are they really pro-life? I mean, we live in a very inhumane system, and especially when it relates to black people. So, is abortion is it a necessary evil in a system like this?
No, it's evil in general. It's there to control the population.
Right.
It's not here for I believe now, even though there's been homosexuality has been going on for thousands of years, I think the reason why it's so propagated and promoted is because there is a push by people in power to keep the population under control. And in fact, if you read the National Security Memorandum 200, they had talked about abortion being used in all of these countries where you find mostly people of color to keep the populations under control. And I think even I was listening to Dr. Umar, he even mentioned they talk about alternative lifestyles as well in that. And that was Henry Kissinger who drew that up. I mean, just look at the TV shows you have now, man.
Yeah, a lot of that is being pushed. The LGBTQ agenda, some people call it, is being very much pushed. And it's called programming for a reason.
Right, it's television. It's the real definition isn't television, it's television programming.
Right. So, I mean, so you saying... Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, ask your question.
No, I was saying, so we could easily say that abortion, homosexuality, and war are means of population control.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Okay. Now, of course, people individually, when they think about that, because they may practice that, they feel, that's not true. But I'm looking at what they wrote, what a government official wrote in this memorandum. I'm looking at when he purposefully targeted or mentioned several countries. I believe 3 of them happen to be on the African continent. The others were in South America. And most of the people in those regions are black or people of color or dark complected. If he didn't mention Russia, he didn't mention France, he didn't mention Germany, Italy, they didn't mention them, they didn't mention any continent or country, on Europe. So, it's clear. Just look at and like I say again, look at the TV shows you have now. Look at even the networks, the news networks that we have now. They really push it. They really push it. Like there was a show, like the show on Fox Empire. They have another show called Star with the white girl.
Right.
That's been lead. Right. And they have a transvestite on the show. And that's Lee Daniels' spinoff. Lee Daniels created all that, right? Yeah, well, Lee Daniels actually, he's fucked up in the head. I've tried to watch several of his movies before, and just given the things he has said, he had a movie once in 2007 that he made with Cuba Gooding Jr. and I believe it was Ellen Mirren, and Shadow Boxer.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't watch the movie, but basically, I think Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, they're assassins and they're also lovers, but she's also his mother or his stepmother or sometimes.
Yeah. And she's way older than he is.
What type of bullshit is that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, has Cuba Gooding Jr. been in any? I know he was in O.J.'s story, but have you seen him in any movie? Like any movie that's grossed over $100 million, or any movie lately that was Oscar nominated?
Was he in The Butler or something? Another Lee Daniels movie. Was he in The Butler?
Yeah, he was in The Butler.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I've seen him in dresses, makeup. It's been a while since Boys in the Hood, man.
Yeah, it's been a while since he screamed Ricky.
Yeah, Jerry Maguire. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I got to make this point too, is that back in the I was born in '86, but I can remember the late '90s and the late '80s, early '90s.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, you had like the movies that came out, like Boys in the Hood. You had quality movies that appealed to our generation and our youth, but there was a lesson behind all of that.
All right.
Like when you watch Menace to Society, as bad as a movie as it was, I guess, for portraying gang violence, but that was a reality. You also saw in the end, while the lead character, the hero, dies in the movie, he goes back and flashes back to all of the stuff that he did. And if he could take it back, he would.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lesson behind it. There was a lesson behind Boys in the Hood when you saw Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character when he was about to go with Ice Cube to go kill the rival gangsters for killing Ricky. He steps out of the car in the last minute and he goes to his father's home, to Lawrence Fishburne's home, and they don't say anything, but he learned his lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up going to Morehouse College, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ice Cube died 2 weeks later after that. So there was and furthermore, even when you look at another movie I like that Cuba wasn't in this one, but you remember Higher Learning?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. When Ice Cube and Busta Rhymes fought and Omar Epps, they fought the rednecks, the Nazis.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Busta went Big Bang Theory on all of them. Flip Mode Squad.
That's right.
Yeah. But my point is that there's certainly an agenda, I think, in Hollywood news media that doesn't want that type of. We don't see that anymore because that's not what they want to push.
Wow. Let me ask you this about Donald Trump. I'm gonna get your point of view from a legal standpoint, and also just from your unique perspective about they call it the Muslim ban, but really, it's I guess travel ban on certain groups of people from certain countries. And Donald has been doing so much in the first 2 weeks that he has done more in the first 2 weeks than Obama has done his first term, it seems, in office.
Yeah, he has.
What's your thoughts about that travel ban and the legal process to appeal it?
Well, I think that right now it's on appeals. I believe in the Ninth Circuit in Seattle from a judge the first federal judge, he struck it down, and now it's on appeal. And it sounds like, based off, I was listening to the oral arguments a little bit yesterday. It sounds like they might side with Trump, and then I think it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. The thing with the ban that I find is that it has, even though it doesn't say it's a Muslim ban, it does seem to be very vague and broad. And you had people with active who were not terrorists, clearly, that had valid visas, and they weren't allowed into the country. I think even the guy from who's the runner in England. I can't think of his name. Black dude.
Mm.
He lives in Seattle. You know what I'm talking about? He's an Olympic runner.
I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah, he's a bald-headed dude. He usually runs the marathon. Great. He runs for England, United Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah, he was out of. Yeah, he couldn't come back in, but I think they may have corrected it. But I mean, but another thing too, when Obama was president, he did have these countries. They weren't on a ban, but they were on a list potentially, I guess, for terrorist watch, and he didn't act on it, but they could have been easily forbidden to come in as well.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't know that and don't talk about that. So what Trump is doing, he's actually acting on it. I mean, you can say this about the guy. He certainly is not a politician because he has not gone back on his word about what he was going to do.
All right, which is like, I respect that. And an Olympian was named Mo Farah. That's his name. He was Somalian as well as a British citizen. Mo Farah, yeah, they let him in. They let him back in. But yeah, that is unique though. That's why I say, like, you know, regardless if you love or hate him or whatever, he is trying to attempt everything he said he would do on the campaign trail. He is attempting to do that.
Well, like what the brother was saying on Joe Williams' show, he said he mentioned something that President Obama didn't do for 8 years that he was in office, and that's black, and that's the ghetto.
Mm-hmm.
Trump is actually, whether you find him sincere or not, I don't know about that. That's a stretch, but he talked about the crime in Chicago. He talked about him putting a stop to it. He talked about even helping, like the historical black colleges and universities, which is something that we didn't get from President Obama. Believe it or not, as bad as Ronald Reagan was for black people, did you know Ronald Reagan signed executive orders to protect historical black colleges and universities?
I had no idea. I know he did the King holiday thing. I mean, it was a really complex thing.
Yeah, he did. He did. Believe it or not. But
wow. Okay.
He did. I've read it somewhere that he had signed executive orders. You know, I just wish, you know, we could have gotten that out of, you know, the president, Obama. But, you know, he's out of office now, and, you know, we missed a good opportunity.
I mean, but yeah. I'm listening, brother Gav. Go ahead.
You know, he had, at one point, you know, he had control of the Congress and Senate. You know, that would have been a perfect time for him to. It's not the fact that, like, for instance, even if he had an opportunity to appoint black justices to the Supreme Court, and even if they weren't confirmed by the Senate, the fact is that he didn't try.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I listened, you know, and I've listened to and looked at some of the people he appointed. If you look at the two candidates the two justices he has, Sotomayor and Kagan, you know, basically, I guess you could say they're left wing and so forth. But most of the time, I find, you know, of course, it's really more pro LGBT or pro white women that they represent. Like when you look at affirmative action. Affirmative action doesn't benefit black people now; it benefits whites, women.
Mm.
We don't talk about that, though. You know, you look at the laws that have been changed, mostly during President Obama's presidency during the 8 years. Most of it was for, you know, white women, pro-LGBT. It was for Hispanics with the immigration laws. And by the way, for the record, I saw the video, even President Obama talked about strengthening immigration laws back in 2014.
Mm-hmm. Well, he deported almost 3 million illegal immigrants during his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, it was not talked about, you know, while he was in the office, but after office. Let me ask you this: do you think the media does a poor job? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think it wasn't talked about?
Because he was Obama. I mean, they played favorites with Obama. I mean, I think a lot of things.
It's a love affair.
Yeah. I mean, to put it lightly, so do you think the media? Go ahead.
He was the guy that came after George W.
Mm-hmm.
And George W. did so much of a terrible job that even the racist rednecks were going for president, were voting for Obama. So you remember they actually had a group called Rednecks for Obama back in '08 when he was running. So because he was, the way he was talking, how he carried himself, people fell in love with that. They were suffering. So when you know, if you're in a car accident, like if you get in a car accident and you hurt and you can't move, and someone's trying to get you out and they're talking to you, calming you down, you don't care what that person looks like. You didn't want to get out of that situation. That's what Obama was for a lot of people. He was calm and Joe Cool, you know, how he carried himself, and a lot of people, you know, they fell in love with that. Now, to answer your question you asked, do I think the media does a bad job? I think they do. You got to realize something too. There's no such thing as free press anymore. You know, everything now, everybody's bought by corporations. I think when you look at, for instance, let's look at CNN and what was happening during the Democratic National Convention and what was happening with the race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton debated one night, and Hillary Clinton clearly lost. And what did CNN put on their website? Or what was the pundit saying? Oh, Hillary was outstanding. She was great. She gave a great speech. But she lost. Everybody saw it. You know, they were pushing, you know, they were clearly pushing for Hillary to get this nomination and to get the presidency. When you watch, you know, when you read the WikiLeaks and you see what was released about Bernie Sanders, how they were trying to, the superdelegates and people in the Democratic committee were trying to get him out of the race, you know, calling him doofus and so forth, not taking him seriously. You had, even in the Democrat, how it relates to us as black people, they were even talking about Black Lives Matter and how when these, you know, Democrats meet with Black Lives Matter activists, they actually say don't promise them anything. That's what happens when you keep getting taken for granted. And you keep voting and voting for people, but you don't get anything out of it. People are going to take you for granted. Do you know that, and I'm just to get back to the media, but I want to make this point too. I was listening to Dr. Boyce Watkins. Do you know that Claude Anderson, you know who he is?
Right,
Dr. Claude Anderson? I've had his book, Power Economics. He actually approached both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party about reparations for black people. And guess who listened and guess who didn't want to even talk to him? The Republicans listened to him, but the Democrats told him, get the hell out of here. Right. This was before the election. So, but that's what they do. And they put these shills, and I mean, it exists on Fox News too, because Fox News clearly is for Republicans and they state lies, but, you know, CNN is not that honest either. And look at what they did. And don't get me started on what they did with MSNBC and how they fired all of these black anchors.
Yeah. There's been a purge.
Look at, right, they did a purge. And you know why they did that is because now that President Obama is out of office, there's no longer a need for black anchors on these shows. Like you saw what happened with Tamron Hall on the Today Show, and they dumped her for, was it Megyn Kelly from Fox?
Right.
And what the hell is that about? It wasn't she's not impressive.
Yeah.
She was a nasty witch. I remember when I think it was her and D.L. Hughley that went back and forth?
I don't know, but I mean, to me, I never saw her as a real journalist. I mean, she's just like eye candy or whatever. Right. She sued Rupert Murdoch and she quit Fox because I think she was fired, but she sued Rupert Murdoch for harassment, I believe. That's what happened. Yeah, Roger L. She's got rid of Roger L. I just like something about her though. Just on sit right, it's like she's like, I don't know, very manipulative or something like that. Like I didn't really buy the narrative with her around the L's. I mean, I think, there was a mentor at one point, and then all of a sudden he's a, harasser. I don't know. I'd look at her more as an opportunist.
Oh, Megyn Kelly?
Yeah, a master opportunist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just find there's nothing special about her that tells me unwarranted why this Tamron Hall should have been fired, even though I don't watch the Today Show anyway to begin with. But still, you like to see, whenever you see a sister on there, and clearly she's talented. She was a great interviewer. I just didn't see the need why she would be fired.
I heard that made an offer though. They made a multi-million-dollar, multi-year offer. I guess.
To Megyn Kelly.
Not to Tamron Hall. She walked away from it, supposedly.
Oh, she walked away from it, and
that's the narrative they pushing now.
No, she didn't walk away from it. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I think that they fired her. They want to bring Megyn Kelly on because if you just look at what's happened with NBC, they had Tamron Hall, they had Melissa Harris Perry, they had Al Sharpton.
And Joy Reid, she was good for what she did.
Joy Reid, yeah. And all those shows are now, where are they now?
I mean, because Obama's out of office, right? They needed it for the Obama era.
You're no longer needed, nigga.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're telling you. You are no longer needed. That is why, and that is even more important, Ron, why black people need to form and put an agenda together, put their money together and create their own networks, their own story, so that we can report our own storylines. And we had, BET at one point did that when they had BET News, but, Bob Johnson sold BET, although some people say he was forced to sell BET. We had Tavis Smiley, was on there. I remember when they fired him from the show, that was big news then because Tavis was a well-respected journalist to us,
All I think was the way they phrased that was that they just didn't renew his contract. Now, he might have thought it was a firing, but they just renewed. I guess it's the same difference. I don't know.
What it was that they got fired. He got fired because he did some type of interview and he sold it to ABC instead of selling it to CBS because CBS is owned by Viacom, which now owns not only BET but also Nickelodeon, VH1, MTV, MTV2, the Box, which used to be the Box.
Yeah, I remember the Box.
Centric, all of that is owned. See, BET is not really it's not a black-owned network for black people. It's targeted towards black people.
Right.
See, that's the difference. But TV One is black-owned. Although I hear there are some whites that are on the board of trustees. I don't know too much about that, but TV One, I find their programming is good.
Mm-hmm.
I know they have Bounce TV, but Bounce TV is it's a small network. It actually, they do have some shows on there, but they still got to keep growing.
Right.
Yeah.
But had we had a stronger black media president, a more critical of President Obama, do you think things would be different right now? If we had one that was more critiquing instead of being a quote-unquote love affair with President Obama?
I think things would have been different? I think that if we had I don't want to just say it would be the black media, just them in general. I think if we had black leadership combined with that things might be a little bit different. If we still had an agenda, if we came together and had an agenda to put behind him, and then go on to a black news network, let's say Roland Martin, because even Roland Martin, to an extent, he had been critical of the president on a lot of issues. He was critical about the HBCU thing. He was also critical about the Democrats. He was even critical about, and this is another subject, but he was critical about these feminist groups when you saw all of these black women getting shot. You saw the little black girl, if you remember, in Texas that had the cop put his knee on her back,
right,
and she was in a bikini.
Yeah,
he called out both Roland Martin and A.L.L. Hughley called out, the National Organization for Women, because they didn't say anything. They didn't say anything. So I think if we had combined that and we had some people that were critical and had an agenda, but also were to give constructive criticism of the president and say, this is, Mr. President, this is what we want. This is what we need to see. We don't need this and so forth. Then I think, maybe it might have, if we had that combined, I think it could have been different. But you got to realize, too, Ron, they had a lot of gatekeepers in the White House that didn't want to hear anything about a black agenda. They didn't want that. I think, Dr. Boyce Watkins was talking about how he would be there when President Obama first got, was first starting off and when he was getting elected and how excited he was. But he saw how he was actually hanging out with Al Sharpton, and when he's not really a guy that's politically involved, but he saw some of the things that were going on, and he saw how Al Sharpton got invited to the White House, but Jesse Jackson wouldn't be invited. See, there was a reason behind that. There's a reason why President Obama would invite Ben Jealous, Mark Morial, and a couple of others, but they wouldn't even have serious conversations with the president. And even Mark Morial talked about how it was a wasted opportunity that they had for President Obama because they didn't present him with anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason behind that. And you see it even now. Look at their black radio stations. Look at Tom Joyner.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Joyner has gotten axed now that President Obama is out of office in some networks.
But he's still on air, right? But you say he got froze out.
He's still on it. Well, he's still on the air, but I know. Well, Steve Harvey then took over some of his spots, like in New Orleans, for instance. 98.5 WILD used to be all Tom Joyner, but now Steve Harvey got that. Tom has lost, but I think they were taking, there was an article in Your Black World, they were talking about how they were actually taking over his actual show, that he wasn't on it anymore. And they were talking about him being pushed out.
Wow.
But you see, during that time, Tom Joyner has been the biggest supporter of, one of the biggest supporters of Barack Obama. And that's when, both he and Cornell, he had a fallout out with Tavis Smiley and Cornel West. Steve Harvey, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now Steve Harvey is getting his karma ever since he met with Donald Trump. And people have been calling him out. See, Steve got in trouble, but he was just probably going up to see Donald Trump so he could get Mr. Trump to buy one of his loud suits. Y'all show your love for my sparkly tie.
There you go.
He wants to get his clothes out of Ross. So, yeah.
So that's so cool.
Yeah, man. But that's what happens. We've had, if you remember when Tavis was and Cornel West was calling him out, Steve Harvey called them Uncle Toms.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Joyner even insinuated that like Tavis was Cornel's, something along those lines, like he made words that you wouldn't say about a man. Like he was questioning their manhood. Yeah, he wrote an article about that. Something like that, calling him, saying he sounded like a jealous side piece when he talked about Obama. The president is the highest office in the land, and every president has had to deal with race. Every president has had to deal with an issue. I don't care if you're talking about Lincoln, if you're talking about Washington, all the way to LBJ to George W. Everybody had to deal with it. Whether their policies were good or bad, they still had to deal with it. And so those brothers had every right to call him out and to say, Mr. President, this is what we want, or this is something better that you could do. And we didn't get that. And we were so angry and we were so defensive about protecting the president that, we missed an opportunity.
Yeah, we sure did. I definitely agree with that. But they were consistent with their criticism. But it is what it is now. I mean, it's going to be interesting as time
Right.
marches forward, how his legacy is actually, perceived or how it looks. You know what I'm saying? Because President Obama got both pros and cons to his legacy, but I guess it's all in the eyes of the historian now, who decides to write about it. But my thing is, has any president really done anything for black people, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's been a president that specifically, if you want to talk about presidents that have done things for black people, there have been presidents whose policies have helped black people to get into certain positions. Certainly, when you look at Lyndon Johnson, I've listened to Judge Joe Brown, and what he said was true about LBJ with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. That was during a time when you didn't think a lot of people thought he would be critical of the civil rights movement, but he was actually a great ally to Dr. King. But at the same time, LBJ was a known racist because you have the tapes of him saying nigger and so forth, calling Malcolm X and Dr. King, the N-word, nigger, as well as, but I mean, he also passed these policies too that we benefit from.
Yeah.
Same thing with, when you had Harry Truman, it's been speculated that Harry Truman was a Klansman. But he also desegregated the United States Army. Now we had Bill Clinton as president, and a lot of black people loved him, but Bill Clinton's crimes bill put more blacks in jail at an alarming rate. And if you watch the documentary 13th, that the sister who directed Selma did, right, you can see all of the stuff that the shit he was doing, but black people still praise him because he was on Arsenio Hall jamming on that saxophone.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this as well. I'll just wrap it up. I really enjoy talking to you. People.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
Yeah, I know you're a great football fan. You're a fan of the Patriots, but people, view the Patriots. The Patriots.
I need to correct you. I gotta correct you. I'm a Saints fan. I'm not a fan of the Patriots.
Oh, you're not a fan? I thought you were for some reason like you're a Tom Brady fan.
I'm a fan of anybody that beats Atlanta.
Oh, gotcha. I gotcha. Okay, that's what it is. So I asked you, about, people look at the Patriots. They won this great comeback, and they won their 5th Super Bowl championship. And Tom Brady is the GOAT of quarterbacks. And my thing is, what's your thoughts about that? I just think the whole thing is rigged. I'm not really behind the football anymore. I'm tired of professional sports acting like they're actually really doing real competition. Just embrace your fakeness like WWE. Just say that you're fake. Because look at the World Series. You have a team that's 3-1, and then all of a sudden the team that's down went 3 straight. And you look at this like Super Bowl, you have 25-point lead, and now so you have a meltdown. You forget how to play football. And Tom Brady just so happened to wear this. Yeah. What's your thoughts about this whole thing with sports? And I don't know, man. What's your take on that, on the Super Bowl?
I mean, I don't know about I certainly know there's such thing as point shaving. I certainly know that there are people, obviously you look at Pete Rose, who gambled, and so there's a lot of money behind it. In fact, I think the spread for New England and Atlanta, they had New England at +5, if I'm correct. So they made 6 in overtime. But I don't know about it being rigged. So I mean, it's a possibility that certain things like that happen. I certainly know it can happen. I know boxers take dives,
right?
But that was But that I never saw a game like that. Not a Super Bowl like that where you had a team that blew a 25-point lead and virtually everything that went right for New England started to go right with Tom Brady. If you look at during the game, you noticed he was missing his targets wide off. Yeah. It was during that, and he couldn't get set, and then all of a sudden they took pressure. But even go back before that, when they had it was 12-28, with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and they have 20 seconds left on the clock, and they're still running a play on the play clock and not letting the time go down.
Mm.
I didn't I didn't understand it. I was just watching the game. You know, of course, I was rooting for Atlanta to lose, but I was just sitting there watching it, and I was like, "Are they really doing this?" You know.
Well, I'll let you know. I mean, like, I know people. I was looking at some stuff online with Zachary Hubbard, this guy who's online. He does stuff with numerology and also with some other stuff. That he don't, he really calls the games and stuff like that. He was talking about how the significance of number 34. Like the score was, what was the score? 34. The Patriots won, and it was like Tom Brady 34.
Score was 34-28. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his 34th career playoff game. You know, Paul Pierce, he retired that day in Boston, the Boston Celtic great. He wore the number 34. So a lot of people look at these things with numbers and stuff, like 88 and 44 and stuff like that. And I don't want to get too much deep into it, but I let you know that, it's something weird with that whole thing. Like, it seems like it's so scripted to me. Like, they had, it's like Rocky Marciano. It's like Rocky Marciano. He never lost a fight, but, it was all mobbed up. Boxing was mobbed up. He was an Italian-American. Not saying that it takes away from his legacy, but, he never lost a fight because who controlled the boxing world back then?
The mafia.
Right,
Well, remember when interesting thing about Marciano was that Marciano actually, he fought, when he fought Joe Louis was almost 40 years old.
He was washed up,
and he was all washed up then, and he was basically fighting to keep the IRS off of his back. And Marciano was, Joe Louis was Rocky Marciano's hero.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Rocky Marciano, if you watch his fights, he's a great power puncher, but, they rigged and tried to do everything for him. I won't say rigged, but like when you watch, they basically hyped him up as tried to hype him up as the greatest heavyweight of all time, when in actuality, if you go back, he fought Jersey Joe Walcott, who was old, and Jersey Joe Walcott was beating him till Marciano caught him. As a Charles, he fought an old Joe Louis, but they tried to have a fight with Ali and Marciano, a virtual fight, and he actually had Marciano winning, which I can't see happening.
Really? So Ali in his prime. Okay, versus Rocky Marciano. As fast as Ali was and his footwork. Oh, yeah.
Marciano couldn't even beat Tyson.
But he said he was a power puncher, one of the best of all time. But yeah, as far as being the greatest of all time, I don't believe that either. I mean, he's a great, but yeah, but I mean, I remember I even heard a story where Sugar Ray Robinson, the great Sugar Ray Robinson, was told to throw a fight. He refused to do it, like by Frankie Carbo, Mr. Gray, who was the guy who controlled Madison Square Garden boxing. They wanted him to throw a fight. He wouldn't do it. This is Sugar Ray Robinson.
Right. Yeah, Sugar Ray Robinson was the only man, was the first man to win a middleweight different championship in 5 different classes.
That's a great, right? That's a GOAT right there to me.
That's the GOAT.
Yeah.
And can knock you out going backwards. If you go back and look at, I think when he fought Carmen Basilio,
mm-hmm.
and I'm a boxing fanatic too as well, because my grandfather, he actually used to be a timekeeper at one time.
Okay, wow.
And funny thing about that, here in New Orleans, he was a timekeeper, but they stopped him because he would let the fight go on past 3 minutes because he was so into the fight, watching the black dude with the white boy.
I like that.
You'd have basically a 5-minute round.
Wow. Yeah, the people their money's worth.
Sugar Ray Robinson fought, I think it was Carmen Basilio, and in the 7th round, Sugar Ray was backing up, and he hit Basilio with a left hook, which they call a perfect left hook in the dictionary. And if you saw a picture of it, you would see Sugar Ray Robinson knocking this guy out. That's the GOAT. Fought in over 200 fights.
Right. Wow. So, Brother Gavin, what's the best way for the people to reach out to you if they want to connect with you for interviews or whatever?
You want to reach me? People can contact me at my email. It's GavIN, GAVIN, Richard, RICHARD, at iCloud.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at GavInRich2786. I also have a Facebook account with my name, GavIN Richard. So,
thank you, brother Richard. Richard, excuse me. The world's great to Alton. We love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And keep on, keep on doing what you're doing. And I look forward to having you back on the show very soon.
Yeah, brother, I really appreciate it. I love listening to the show, and I'm real proud of you, man.
I'll tell you that's an honor. Really go both ways. But we'll be doing some more shows together.
Yeah, I look forward, and I gotta listen to when you do another show with Judge Joe.
We got some stuff coming up for y'all, man. We're gonna start a movement, and we'll let y'all know about it.
Hey, I gotta watch. I gotta listen to him because I was busting out laughing when he was talking about John Lewis and not attending Trump's inauguration.
Yeah, man. Judge don't hold his tongue, man. He let you know how he feel about things.
Right. I gotta leave on this note too. I want to actually. I got a question: is what did John Lewis or any of the congressional? And I respect John Lewis in his history, but in general, what did the Congressional Black Caucus do during the 8 years that Obama was president? When all of this stuff, when you've had these black shootings, black men, did they try to even propose legislation to the president to try and stop these race soldiers from killing young black men? His Department of Justice, could they have actually proposed some type of legislation or something where these cops get federal funding for equipment that if they don't cut it out, if they keep these practices going, then we're going to start taking your funding?
Man, all they did was throw great parties, man. They just threw great parties for 8 years. Yeah.
Right, and most importantly, since Congressman Lewis did back Hillary Clinton, I would like to know what was his feelings about the super predator comment she made.
I mean, John Lewis, though, man, I met him a couple times in Atlanta. I respect him. That's a good question to ask, but I look at I went to Selma back in 2015.
Okay.
Why are we celebrating what happened in Selma on the bridge? I mean, you look at Selma, go to Selma right now, and you know what I'm talking about. Like, what was the accomplishment? What was the victory? I mean, you talk to the people there. You got the hood. You got a lot of poverty. Yeah, we could take an ass whooping. Yeah, John Lewis definitely could take an ass whooping. He's the go-to ass whooping.
I know. And I got to say this too. You look at the movie. If you look at these movies that they've had Selma and Hidden Figures, which is a good movie. And I mean, I understand children need to see stuff like that so they can understand their history. But if you look at the movie Hidden Figures, the character, did you see the movie?
No, I need to see it. I'm ashamed of myself.
Okay. I don't want to spoil it for you, but if you look at the movie, Kevin Costner's character, basically, this is just maybe a little spoiler alert, but Kevin Costner's character didn't even exist. And in the movie, he was basically the white savior.
Right. He's a composite character, yeah.
He was he was the white savior, and, I don't want to try not to tell you the whole movie, but, there's racism in the movie. And
of course it is.
In particular, Taraji P. Henson's character had to go to the bathroom, and she had to go all the way a mile from where she was working at NASA because that was the only colored bathroom on the NASA facility. So it was a mile away. So when he doesn't see her, that's when he decides to tear her, and she explains in a rant why she was late or why she wasn't there when he needed him. That's when they decided to, tear down the all-white bathroom. But the point of the story in that point is that it wasn't until your rights the only reason why your rights were given to you wasn't at the point when the white man was getting in the way of his agenda. That was the only reason why it happened. And they tried to make him the redeeming character and so forth. Not taking anything against him, but I'm just tired of seeing these movies now where you have, the white savior that comes in and tries to, I guess redeem the whole entire white race for racism. I mean, it is what it is.
Right, it happened. Right.
Right. I would love to see. You know what? I would love to see a movie on John Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be great. But I also would like to see a movie. I think the Nat Turner movie was a great movie, and I think young kids need to see that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a shame how this brother got sabotaged by these, by these feminist groups. When he was acquitted already, and that's another thing. He was acquitted. He was found innocent, but you're still going back 15 years later.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Look at Bill Cosby. This is what, Emmett Till. This is what they do to black men. They always try to make them sex predators, try and destroy their career.
Yeah. And their lives, and destroy careers and lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right, Brother Ron.
All right, Brother Gavin, you take care. You have a great day.
Yeah, you too, man.
I will. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing, and I look forward to doing another talk with you.
Yeah, it'll be sooner than later.
Okay.
Too much stuff going on.
Yeah, too much stuff going on.
All right, man. Stay safe.
You too.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.